जाने तू हुआ ये जादू कैसे, जो मेरा था वो खो गया, जो तेरा मिल गया हो जैसे। इस दिल ने जब जाना के बस तू 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 मेरी री मैं तेरा रा होने लगा। मैं तेरा रा तू मेरी री होने लगी। जैसे हाँ यही बस यही समा है जिसमें जिंदगी है जीनी ऐसे एक पल हो बाकी जैसे अजनबी जहाँ आके लग जाए गले। जैसे तू चले और दुनिया तेरे संग चले, जैसे रात चुपके से तेरे कानों में कहे कि अब तो जाने क्यों तू 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 मेरी री मैं तेरा रा होने लगा। मैं तेरा रा तू मेरी री होने लगी। ऐसी क्या चली हवा के ले गई मेरी सांसों को मुझसे दूर तेरे पास, और मुझे हुआ एहसास तू 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 मेरी री मैं तेरा रा होने लगा। मैं तेरा रा तू मेरी री होने लगी। तू मेरी री मैं तेरा रा होने लगा। मैं तेरा रा तू मेरी री होने लगी।
Good evening. Hey, welcome to the Caribbean Voice presentation of the Mind-Body Connection. Good evening to each and every one of you.
गॉड अल्लाह और भगवान ने बनाया एक इंसान। गॉड अल्लाह और भगवान ने बनाया एक इंसान। आया ज़मीन
Good evening. Hey, welcome to the Caribbean Voice presentation of the Mind-Body Connection. Let's say good evening to all you wonderful folks locked on to Island Zone Radio. Hey, Sandra Singh, good evening to you. Liz Paduman, Mr. Vinod Henry, Mr. Ryan Jeffrey, good evening to you. How you guys are doing? Sandra Singh, good evening to you. Thank you guys very much for tuning in to Island Zone Radio. Joe Thomas, good evening to you. The beautiful Geeta Baldeo, good evening to you. Kendernath Sukram, good evening. Hey, Nagita, good evening to each and every one of you. Mr. George, good evening. And I know you're locked on from Toronto, Canada. Thank you guys very much. Alvin, how you guys are doing? Underground sound from Schenectady. Speaking of underground sound, I need a DJ in Skeldon, Berbice. Put the word out there. If you have a friend or family, do tell them to join us. The Caribbean Voice. We are coming to Guyana. Concert for Hope. And the famous John from Queens is on. Good evening, John. It was nice seeing you. Rajiv, good evening to you. Good evening to each and every one of you. The beautiful Geeta Rampersad is locked on to Island Zone Radio. I wonder where she is this evening. Indra, good evening to you. Kavita, how you guys are doing? Well, what song? The beautiful song was selected from the movie, I believe, Krish 3, selected by our young DJs in the building today. DJ Arvinda. So, good evening to each and every one of you. How was your day? And let's say good evening to my co-host, Mr. Kenneth. How was your day?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Shanaz. Well, thank you guys for tuning in on the Mind Body Connection. It's brought to you by the courtesy of the Caribbean Voice, a non-profit organization that deals with suicide prevention and domestic violence. Well, not bad at all, Shanaz. Had a quiet day at work, and I'm doing much better than last week.
Of course, you got your voice back. I must say, it's good to have your voice back. Good evening to the beautiful Auntie Julie Singh. She's a wonderful supporter of the Caribbean Voice. And I know she said she lost her voice. I said, hope you're not planning on singing this weekend. So, Kavita Chattergun, good evening to you. Indra Singh, good evening, good evening. Thank you guys for joining us. Please hit share. You guys are members of the Caribbean Voice. Thank you guys very much. Central Islip, New York. Well, we'll be going that way pretty soon. And yes, our topic tonight is
depression.
Wow, I feel like all of us suffer a little bit from that. What do you think? Or maybe it's sadness.
You are absolutely correct at some time of our lives. But you know, why we bring up this topic today,
I know we've done this topic before in the future a couple of times, and they keep getting requested by you guys, the viewers out there, because it seems like it plays an important role. Mental health is so important.
Absolutely correct. And you know, recently there were 2 police officers who killed themselves. So, and there's so many other people who choose to end their life, and it's a sad situation. And so that's why when Anand asked me to let's bring back this topic, I just grabbed it and I said I'm going to run with this tonight, because so much bad publicity about suicide and depression and mental illness, that we really need to change this stigma, Shanaz. It's sad that how people look at this. When we look at our body, we get diabetes, we get hypertension, people get strokes and all these things. And
it can be overwhelming to deal with at times and to cope with it. But we all need to get some coping mechanisms to how to cope with different situations.
Yes, and the thing is that when people get these diagnoses, people go to the hospital, they see them, they tell them, oh, get well soon, I hope you feel well, all the nice things. Everybody's there supporting them. But when you have someone with mental illness, people really do take a different approach to this in the way they look at mental illness and suicide. I've heard so many negative comments, and I really take this on personally, that people, the way how people look at it, and I would hope that we can change someone idea and the way how they look at this, because when you're mentally ill, people don't support you. If you try to kill yourself, people say, "You good, you're dead. Why you didn't die quicker?" You know, all these so negative things, and it's just like how our body, we get sick, our mind gets sick too, and sometimes genetics play a big part in all of this. So tonight, I think I'm going to put on my best cap and try to bring this over to you guys, and I hope that as I bring this over with love, you guys are going to embrace all this information that Shanaz and myself are going to bring over to you.
Good evening to the beautiful girly Prasad. Priya Prasad, good evening to you. How you guys are doing? Fiza Rahim, Savitri, good evening to you. And Fiza Rahim said, depression is a serious problem. Indra Singh said, my daughters suffer from anxiety and depression. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Keep those comments coming. We love reading from you. Geeta Baldeo said, depression is a very, very serious problem. And yes, we'll talk about it. We'll read your comments. Thank you for sharing. And yes, that song was selected from the movie Krish 3. Varshini, good evening to you. Thank you guys very much. The beautiful girly Prasad in the Sunshine State of Florida. Good evening. Our Caribbean Voice very own, the beautiful Neela Pawaru. And I will give some shout outs to some of the members that represent the Caribbean Voice. We are a non-profit organization making a difference, not just in Guyana, around the world. So share our link and let's get more folks involved as we continue our talk with depression with Mr. Kenneth Hiram Ramprasad. Three names you have for one person. Mr. Kenneth Hiram Ramprasad this evening.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that we were so lucky this weekend. Neela, she's a member of the Caribbean Voice, and I want to say thank you to her, especially to her hubby for bring her here to New York City to drop off those the wheelchair and the walker and so on. Also, Arjun Madre, he came. I was so surprised. I came from the backyard.
Mr. Arjuna Madre, good evening to you, and thank you guys very much for tuning in, and thank you for supporting us, the Caribbean Voice, and your donations are well appreciated. It goes a far way as we're getting ready to mail not just one pallet, we're getting ready to mail 2 pallets and maybe 12 computers for 2 schools that we're sponsoring in Guyana. If you have a donation, do reach out to Mr. Anand Budram, the Caribbean Voice, Mr. Hiram, or myself, or any one of the members, and we'll pick up your donations. Thank you guys very much. Ish, good evening to you. Dina Ramroop, how you guys are doing?
Yes, and yesterday was my sister Anita's birthday in Canada.
And someone else's birthday. Let's say happy birthday to the young and handsome
Ken Ramprasad, the young junior.
The junior, that's
happy
right.
Happy birthday, my son.
Selecta Abid in Toronto, good evening to you. Good evening to each and every one of you. Thank you for sharing. We want to hear your story. And depression is quite real, believe me. Sometimes you cannot separate, some folks don't know how to separate depression from sadness. And we all, endure sadness from time to time. So, let's differentiate what is sadness and what is depression.
Shanaz, I really want to put this in this perspective that, we are born into this world, and all of us at some time or the other, I heard a saying, they said that the black crow flies over all of us home sometime or the other, over a house. And so, we all as human beings have our own time when sadness will come, when gladness will come.
Right.
So, we should embrace each other, support each other when these things happen. So, we're going to talk a little bit about depression. I want to give you guys some statistics, give you some facts about depression, and after which we will get some music. But let me go. We want to say hi to our own baby Ahmad from
Caribbean Voice, Guyana. Good evening to you. Harry George, thank you for sharing. He said, I suffer from depression and anxiety 4 years now, and he personally think that it's the worst thing to go through. Well, we're here for you. If you know someone suffering from depression, anxiety, hey, mental illness is very serious. 5 minutes of your time could save a life. Suicide prevention is everybody's business. We are the Caribbean Voice. Add us on all your social media, and we'll get to you.
So let's talk. Mental illness of the midbrain affect tens of millions of people in the United States. Depression is by far the most prevalent, representing 99% of all midbrain illness. Schizophrenia and major psychotic illness represents the remaining 1%. So you can see that 99% of us go through depression sometime or the other, or some form of sadness. The umbrella of depression encompasses major depressive disorder, and it relates to mood disorder, including bipolar disorder, postpartum depression, which is very important, and we will talk about that a little bit, because we know that when sometimes we hear that a young girl killed her child, and we say, my God, she is so mean, she's all of this. So
we cannot judge them because you don't know what they're expressing, how they're feeling. As I said, depression is a fairly common mood disorder that affects over 350 million people across the globe.
You are correct. You are correct. Also, post-traumatic stress syndrome, anxiety disorder, and the suicide. It affects over 18 million adults. That's 1 in 10 in a given year. Is the leading cause of disability for the age of 15 to 44. Is the primary reason why someone die of suicide every 13 minutes. So as you can see from what I'm saying, if you don't take care of your depression, it can lead to suicide. And that's why we're saying that, when you see or you hear someone die suddenly, commit suicide suddenly, you wonder, and we wonder all the things. What really could happen? Why did they kill themselves? And we learned recently of this police officer who killed himself. He had a couple of months more to retire from the police force. All his pension benefit set up and everything, had a good life, and he just shot himself. So in my mind, and I'm sure in a lot of healthcare professional, they would say, you know what, probably suicide. He killed himself because he was depressed. And the thing is that
sometimes
a lot of
we
us,
come and say, okay, maybe he has marital problem, but he was single, so everything plays a little effect in it.
absolutely. And you said, even depression in the workplace, it causes 490 million disability days from work each year in the United States. And a lot of times you may hear your colleagues would say that, you know what, I'm not coming in tomorrow, I don't feel well. And sometimes some of them push themselves and come to work, but a lot of people stay home and rest themselves. It accounts for 23 billion lost work days each year. It takes an economic toll over 100 billion each year from the U.S. business. And let's talk about, you just said depression internationally. It affects over 300 million people worldwide, regardless of color, age, gender, religion, race, and economic status. And let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about people of different race, whether you're black, and I'm breaking it down because I want people to really understand
It's
that
not
depression,
just the Caribbean that's happening to, it's worldwide. It's a global crisis, I should say.
Exactly.
And knowing
so.
the signs and symptoms can be beneficial when it comes to depression. So guys, listen on. If you know, it might help you to, recognize in someone else the signs and symptoms of depression.
Exactly. So whether you're black, white, you're gay, straight, or bisexual, whether you're rich, whether you're poor. So, and that's one of the things that I say, despite you are rich, you should not be looking down at someone who is poor. You might be driving a big Jeep or a big whatever it is, and someone with a little Toyota or a little Nissan, you may want to look down on it. And at the end of the day, like I always say, at the end of the I was talking to somebody, and at the end of the day, when our time come to go, all of this doesn't matter. All what you own or you have, what you belong to, you take nothing with you. And that's why I'm saying that we should really be kinder to each other.
Right. And I want to interrupt you when it comes to driving that fancy car and driving that Toyota. I have doctors who drive Toyota and Honda, not the Mercedes Benz. And guess what? They're putting their kids through college. They're doing all the right thing because you know what? They feel contented with themselves. They're happy enough that they don't need to go and impress anyone and put themselves into debt. Most of us sometimes want to impress others. We're living to please others instead of satisfying our own self. And I want to read this comment from the beautiful Varshini Kendernath. How old is Varshini Kendernath? She wrote a very nice, depression can make you struggle and make you feel lost too. You can even lose sleep. Well, good evening to the beautiful Varshini, and what a beautiful comment. I know she's a teenager.
Yes.
So that was a beautiful comment. Gita Baldev, good evening to you. Mr. Harry George, thank you very much for sharing. And we are here for you, the Caribbean Voice.
Yeah, and it is one of the most debilitating disease out there. It could be severe. Depression can be severe and is rare in the same disability category. It is categorized as like cancer and so on. So one has to really, really pay attention to depression. And the thing is that some of us may not be able to see that someone is depressed is the way that someone is really feeling inside of them. So let's go to talk a little more. Depression is a serious mental health condition that requires understanding and medical care. It has no boundaries, as we said earlier. It can be mild, moderate, or severe. Depression does not have to be a life sentence, even though one may feel this way. So let's talk a little bit about this depression. If you've been diagnosed with depression, the good thing is that there is care out there. There is things that you can do to help yourself. And as we go along tonight,
and not just medical care, not just medicine. Every time when you say you could get help, they think of, okay, I have to be medicated. There's a lot of things you could do to get out of it. So listen, talk to your doctor, and that's actually the last step you could take before to cure it. So depression is persistent sadness. Overwhelming and persistent sadness is a common condition where you feel hopelessness.
Right, absolutely. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a life sentence. The positive thing is that with depression, It can be treated with proper professional help. You know, if left untreated, depression can be devastating for the people who have it or for their families. And let's talk about this. If you have a family who's having depression, it could be really tough on you, especially if it's one of your partner, your husband or your wife or your child. It could be very difficult for you as the caretaker for them, because you imagine you wake up in the morning and you see them in bed, and you come back from work and they're still in bed. You're not
changing
anything.
your clothes, you're not getting up to cook, not to eat breakfast. Sometimes, you know, it brings you down. So if you want to help someone and you cannot reach out to us, the Caribbean Voice, because sometimes watching someone struggle with that can make you feel helpless and hopeless too, you know. Reach out to us, the Caribbean Voice. Sometimes you don't know how to help.
I see Priya
Prasad
Prasad.
shared a very nice link. Wisdom at your fingertip. Thank you very much. She said, I totally agree, and I've been there. Depression can really break you.
Yes, and Golden Singh from Guyana. We live in the same village of Lenora. Thank you very much for tuning in. Somnath Hiralal, thank you for tuning in. And I want you guys to please continue to share our links so that people could hear our message and they could help themselves or help each other. And the thing is that some people have this one episode in their whole lifetime, but for most people, depression can reoccur without treatment. Episode may last for a few months to several years. People with severe depression can become so hopeless that they could end up suicide, as we said before. An estimated 16 million Americans, we said, which is like 7% of the population, has at least one major depression episode of depression in the United States. We said the other thing is that like 60% of people who have depression is women, which is more for men. But let's talk about men and women in terms of depression and sickness. You and I know that men do not, and this statistics may not, it's just an average, I believe, because you and I know, Shanaz, that we do not like to go to the doctor. We hate going to the doctor. We wait until things go till to the end, and when things gone bad, that's when we want to go to the doctor.
As they said,
when
early
it's too late.
Detection is better prevention.
That's right, and that's why we encourage men that if they're depressed, that they should seek help. As we said, we know men, they always delay this problem. Like Geeta will tell you, with my cold, I always say I'm not going, and when I really decide,
yeah, you think you could get it over, it'll be gone in a few days, but something gets persistent. Aditya Kendernath, Lilawati, good evening to you. Nanda, good evening. Padmini, how you doing? Babita Gul, good evening to you. Thank you guys for sharing. Sharing is caring. We are the Caribbean Voice, a non-for-profit organization making a difference in Guyana and around the world. Nanda Budai, good evening to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And my cousin from Parika, Lilawati Prasad, she tuned in. Thank you very much. And my good friend who, Padmini Rameshwar, she's supporting the Caribbean Voice too, because last year she made a donation to us. I'm coming back again shortly for some donation, probably in another month time. So please share the word. Thank you very much. The other thing is that getting a comprehensive evaluation is very important when you are depressed. Underlying medical issue that can mimic major depressive episode, like side effects of some medication, also hypothyroidism. And one of the good thing, I just got off the phone before you came in with Dr. Tan, who is a psychiatrist. We work together. I was talking to him about hypothyroidism, and it's very important that when you get depression, you do a hypothyroidism test to see what is really causing this, all the symptoms that you're getting. And so you want to rule out whether it's depression or whether it's hypothyroidism. And if it's hypothyroidism, what the doctor may do is, the psychiatrist, they can treat you for the hypothyroidism, and eventually with the treatment, your depression may go away. Or if possible, your doctor can, if it doesn't go away, he can treat both of them together. Underlining how many co-occurring condition fits into this diagnostic picture also inform treatment options. So that's a good thing. to always, if you feel depressed, say something. Another thing is that we know that depression runs in the family, so it's always important when you go to the doctor, and I know I'm going to talk about this a little later on, but if you're depressed and you go to the doctor, you see the psychiatrist, always make sure you give a good family history of your mother and your father, your grandfather, their history, so that will enable the doctor to come up with a concrete diagnosis.
Right.
All right, so
and oftentimes we go to the doctor and we have to fill out all these papers, as I mentioned before, and it comes with generation back family history, and we get annoyed at why do I need to fill this in. It's very important to go back to your family history and that family tree. Good evening. You can read the Caribbean Voice comment, and I'll read Alana's comment.
Okay, the Caribbean Voice Media. The genesis of depression is still unknown, but it can be triggered by a range of factors, including traumatic events or serious illness, life struggles, and so on. Yes, we will, and I'm sure that's Mr. Anand Budram, and we will get to all of that in just a moment.
Alana said, I've been dealing with depression and anxiety for 6 years now. Some days it's difficult to get out of bed. Medication help a little bit, but doing some extracurricular activities also would help her and keep her positive. And I always feel, if you're not keeping yourself occupied, that's when your mind is at its most. If you're fighting with yourself every day when you're struggling with depression, every day to, get out and do something.
Yes, and we will talk all about that later on down the line. And it's good to know what is your underlying stressors in life, and like prior responses to treatment effort can help shape a good treatment plan. So we see our John Nimmet, who has always been supportive of the Caribbean Voice, and he always send me great messages. And
always very motivational.
Yes.
Priya Prasad said, thank you for placing an emphasis on this topic. Week after week, we bring you educational stuff right here on Island Zone Radio. The Caribbean Voice is on 8 to 10 p.m. Tell a friend to tune in. Mr. John Nimmet, thank you very much. Kavita Chattergoon, she said, depression can make you feel sad and in a dark place. Place. Thank you very much for sharing. I love reading your comments. Keep them coming. Good evening to the beautiful Girly Prasad. What a wonderful singer. She's known as the voice of Kanchan.
Really?
Yes, so you have to come down in Florida and hear her sing. She's been up to New York quite a few times. And soon she'll be performing for the Caribbean Voice Concert for Hope. Depression can come from a young age. Witness your parents suffering and growing up with many things on your mind, correct?
So I would encourage Girly. I've never met her. I've never heard her sing, but
I'll have to put a few link up in there, and we'll play her song coming up on the Caribbean Voice.
And Girly, people like you in our community who are singers and so on, I believe that you guys have influence in our community. So I would encourage you and ask you to please share our program. Go ahead and sing about our program to the world. Okay.
That's right. And speaking of our program, the Caribbean Voice presents Concert for Hope June 29 at Island Mixed Grill in Florida. Guys, check out the link and do come on down to see us. The Caribbean Voice will be in Florida June 29. Concert for Hope in NYC July 13. And hey, we're heading to Guyana August 3rd. Some of the artists that will be performing will be Apache Warrior in NYC, Sateshu Dairam. Nati Romatar will be in Florida, and he's heading to Guyana as well to perform for the Caribbean Voice. I must say thank you to all the wonderful artists year after year volunteering their time and their effort for a really good cause, a non-for-profit organization as the Caribbean Voice. Nati Romatar and Sateshu Dairam has been spearheading our charity Concert for Hope for quite some time now. And yes, we're heading to Schenectady, and someone said Essequibo Berbice, but one show at a time. Follow us on the social media, the Caribbean Voice media page it is. Anthony Prasad also will be in Florida and in NYC. He's known as Mr. Bollywood. And the beautiful Shanti Singh. So many wonderful artists volunteering their time for our concert. NYC, July 13th. In Florida, Kissimmee, Florida, June 29. And in Guyana, August 3rd. So tell a friend to come and support the Caribbean Voice.
That's right. We can get some music now if our DJ is ready. And Priya, thank you very much for your contribution on our program. So all of you guys, I'm so glad that you locked in. John said I can't say much about depression because I don't think I have ever been depressed. I really don't know what is going on in the depressive brain, but there is a lot that's going on. There is a constant battle, John.
We also have Dr. Sixtus Edwards from Guyana locked onto the Caribbean Voice, and he's a member of this wonderful organization, the Caribbean Voice. So let's go with a beautiful song for all you loyal listeners out there. Thank you for sharing. Let's go.
यहाँ अपनी भी थोड़ी अदा थोड़ा अंदाज है ऐसे हैं चाहे वैसे हैं अरे जो भी हैं जैसे हैं खुद पे हम नाज है जाने ना हमको ये ज़माना चाहो तो हमको आज़माना यारबाज़ हम चालसाज़ हम इश्क़बाज़ दिलवाले कहते हैं हमको प्यार से इंडिया वाले छू लेते दिल के तार से इंडिया वाले हर जीत छीन ले हार से इंडिया वाले दुश्मन के छक्के छुड़ा दे हम इंडिया वाले दुश्मन के छक्के छुड़ा दे हम इंडिया वाले
आँखों की चाबी से थोड़ा बेताबी से चुपके से खोले दिल के ताले जा देते उसको जहाँ देते अपना ईमान देते जिसकी भी बाहें गले में डाले
दुनिया से हमको क्या ले जाना यारों के दिल में हो ठिकाना जो दिल से यार हमें ले पुकार तो चांद सार कर डाले कहते हैं हमको प्यार से कहते हैं हमको प्यार से इंडिया वाले छू लेते दिल के तार से इंडिया वाले हर जीत छीन ले हार से इंडिया वाले दुश्मन के छक्के छुड़ा दे उंगली पे सबको नचा दे दुश्मन के छक्के छुड़ा दे हम इंडिया वाले
छम 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 जुल्फों से बांध लिए बादल सीने पे से उड़ने लगा आंचल मुझसे नैना मिला के मौसम होने लगे पागल सबसे होके बेफिक्र नाचूं मैं आज छम 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 मैं नाचूं आज छम 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 मैं नाचूं आज बारिशों की ताल पे ये खनक मेरे धड़कनों की कह रही है झील तू जरा बार बार साथ मेरे सारे अब थिरकने लगे डोले जमीन नाचे आसमां मैं तो हवा हूँ हाथ न आऊं मर्जी से अपनी उड़ती ही जाऊं खुद की करूं मैं क्या तारीफ रात ने चुराया मेरा काजल मुझसे नैना मिला के मौसम होने लगे पागल सबसे होके बेफिक्र नाचूं मैं आज छम 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 छम
Raindrop bouncing, my heart is announcing.
Say you got to take me away. Let's start jumping, my heart goes pumping. I love you in every way. धड़कनों पे बूंद जो गिरी
तो नाचो आज छम 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 मैं नाचू आज छम 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 छम
chum 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 सब नाचे आज chum 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 chum
Beautiful song indeed, Chum Chum. Hey, Angela Singh, good evening to you. How you guys are doing on this beautiful rainy evening in NYC? Sarah, good evening to you. The beautiful girly Prasad. Yes, we have a song coming up with the beautiful girly Prasad. Neela Pawaru, how you doing? Neela Pawaru is a member of the Caribbean Voice. Thank you for sharing all your beautiful comments. And we want to hear more. Deepa Dasrad, good evening to you. And we'll continue our topic tonight. Yashoda Takardeen, good evening, good evening. Mr. John Nimut, yes, August 3rd, we're heading to Guyana. Tell a friend to come and support us. We'll be at the Classic Hotel August 3rd. Let's go with our topic tonight of depression.
Yes, we have from Guyana, Deepa Dasra, she is in Florida. Jasoda Takurdeen from Trinidad, and Angela Singh, who I've known for many years, who is living, I think, in Virginia or Baltimore, along that side. So always nice knowing you guys, and I'm so glad that you guys are listening to our program, and please share as we're talking about this important topic of depression that affected so many people in this world. And so let's go. We talk about the underlying depression. Everyone gets through a period of deep sadness and grief. These feelings usually fade away within a few days or weeks. It depends on the circumstances. But profound sadness that lasts for more than 2 weeks and affected your ability to function may be a sign of depression. So a good thing to do is to know your feelings of how you're feeling. And another good thing to know is your family, yes, and how they're changing. And I always like to use the term baseline. That's how they are really every day. And when you see they're out of that baseline, you know that something is wrong. And let's talk about some of them. I'm going to go slowly with this topic here today because I really want our viewers to get what I'm really saying.
We want you guys to absorb all
that we are saying. And some of the common symptoms of depression are, and you guys know them, it's deep feelings of sadness, dark moods, feeling of worthlessness or hopelessness, your appetite change, sleep changes, lack of energy, inability to concentrate, difficulty getting through a normal day with activities, lack of interest in things you enjoy, you used to enjoy, you don't enjoy it anymore.
lack of interest.
Right. Withdrawal from friends, you don't call your friends no more, you leave them alone. And then a good thing for you to do as friends, you don't hear from your friends sometimes, your good friends, especially if they live by themselves, a good thing to check up on them and see how they're doing. Preoccupied with death and other thought of self-harm. Depression affects everyone differently, and you might only have some of the symptoms. So it is true that we are all, we have our own DNA. There is no double of us. We
We're
may
all
resemble somebody,
individual.
but our DNA is totally different. So if you have someone that's living in your house and you notice any changes like this, what's going on, especially someone is in their room in the dark and they're not talking to you, they're not engaging in any kind of activities, they don't want to talk, they're not eating, a good thing to do as parents or as spouse, you always find out.
Sisters, we're all responsible for each other.
Exactly. So
And we should take interest in taking care of each other.
right, and there are many types of depression, as we have talked before. While some share this, a common symptoms or sign, they may also have some key important difference. And major depression, also known as, there's a big fancy word, major depressive disorder, or classic disorder. And you know what? It's just all called depression. It's fairly common, as we said. So much millions American and of course people from around the world is suffering from depression, and they have experienced this one time or the other. But we say, and I'm going to say it again, that if you are sad and depressed for more than 2 weeks, then you really need to go and
that
get
sadness
seek help.
could lead to something chronic, and that's when you need the help of getting doctor involved so they could diagnose you whether it's depression or something. Just
Exactly. So
sadness wouldn't just persist for 2 weeks in a row.
right. People with major depression experience symptoms most of the day, every day. Like many mental health conditions, it has a little to do with, what's happening around us. You may have a loving family, tons of friends, and a dream job or the best cars. You can have the kind of life that everyone envy you, and guess what? You could still have
Depression.
the depression, right? These symptoms, right, as we say, can even last for months, Shana. Some people might have a single episode of major depression, while others experience it throughout their lifetime. And it's a good thing that when you start to get these things, you suffer from depression, the best thing you can do for yourself is, after you see this thing is prolonging, you need to go and get help. And I'm going to say this continuously, while others experience it throughout their lifetime. There's some patients I know from like 20 years now, and they still suffer from depression. But one of the things that when you are depressed, you have to be very proactive with your life. And if you have to want to help yourself,
keeping your mind occupied is a different thing then. And most doctors will recommend you doing activities to keep you, not just giving you medications. Right?
Exactly. So, and I have all of that planned to talk about later on. Regardless of how long its symptoms last, major depression can cause problems in your relationship and your daily activities. For example, if your husband or your wife is depressed, they may not want to get up and cook. They may not want to do the laundry. They may not want to go to the movie theater with you. They may not want to do things with you. So then guess what? It causes a problem. And the other story is that your partner may not know what's going on, if it's depression or you just want to be by yourself. So a good thing to do is that to get help, to read up about. If you have a spouse with depression or any diagnosis, a good thing to do is to go and educate yourself about the diagnosis. So what happens there is that you will know exactly what to expect from your partner, or and how the best you can help them. And that's the best thing that you can really do. We have persistent depressive disorder, is depression, and which could last for 2 years or more. It is also called chronic depression. Persistent depression might not feel as intense as major depression, but it can still strain relationship and make your task daily very difficult. And some of the signs and symptoms for this. And if you don't catch all the signs and symptoms what I'm talking about, you can always go back to our video and listen it to tomorrow, next week, or even way after I left this earth. You can go and read it. Deep sadness or hopelessness. And these things can happen when you lose a spouse, or you lose a job, or something very important or something very hard happened to you that you take on. Low self-esteem or feeling of inadequacy. Sometimes you see so many women and so many men who are dressed up and they look beautiful and nice
on the outside, but you cannot tell what's going on the inside, what's on their mind. So it's always good to ask someone, how was your day? And smile at them. As I read an article earlier, you can't walk in everybody's shoes. Everyone is walking and fighting their own battles.
Absolutely. The lack of interest in things you once enjoyed. For example, you see your partner love to go to the movie theater and they're not going, and you keep wonder why. And you should, when you go to bed, say, wonder why she don't want to go to the theater. She used to do this all the time. And so therefore what you want to do is to go ahead and see what's going on. Tell me what's going on.
Intervene. That's your time to intervene and say, you know what, she needs help or he needs help.
I know Geeta is going to smile because I keep programming what's going on, what's happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, it's good to
and
ask.
Sometimes
they'll open up.
And sometimes they don't want to talk.
Well, you have to just recommend them. Maybe they don't want to discuss it with you as a spouse, but they want to tell someone else. So you always give them the right direction to go to, because not everybody feel comfortable talking with their spouses.
You know, Shanaz, that's a very important thing that you just said there. And let me say,
Especially guys. I know that, talking to my coworkers, guys who have some problems, they don't feel comfortable talking to their wives about it because they feel like they'll get judged about it.
Yeah, and the good thing is, I'm so glad that you bring it up because, we've been talking about bullying. We talk about so many different subjects, and it's always good that you have someone who you can sit down and talk to apart from your spouse. And even if you have children too, it's a good thing that they can have attached to someone of your family member that they could open up to and talk to them. You know what I'm saying?
That's what aunts are for and uncles are for. You get that bond with them, and they could trust you. Girly Prasad, good evening to you. Padmini Ramasari, good evening, Deepa Dasrat, she's going out with Mr. Bola Prasad from Guyana in Parika. Well, I hope you guys come down to Berbice. August 3rd is the date. Yeah, we're heading to Berbice. Mr. John, thank you very much. Mr. Caribbean Voice.
Yes. He said, ladies and gentlemen, the Mind Body Connection also publishes a weekly column on the issue we cover on the related issues in the West Indian newspaper. Anyone who would like to write an article, please touch base with Anand Budram, or if you already have an article, please send it to
caribvoice@aol.com. That's the Caribbean Voice email address. We encourage you to share your ideas and your thoughts with us. Email your article to caribvoice@aol.com.
Also, you have a change in sleeping, a change in sleeping pattern where the person may want to sleep a lot, or they don't sleep at all.
Or being left alone. You want to be by yourself, isolating yourself.
Yeah, concentration and memory problem, difficulty functioning at work and at home. And talking about that, sometimes there are so many people, and you in the workplace, and you can see that there's a lot of people who are depressed and who have mental problems that don't pay attention to it. And when they go out to the workplace, that you will see you have some bosses or co-worker that exhibiting all these signs and symptoms of some kind of mental illness. You may not know exactly what the diagnosis is, but you will know definitely that something going on. So it's good to, even if you hear something about yourself, go check it out. Don't let it linger on you. Difficulty functioning at work or at school, inability to feel joy, even at happy occasion. And when you're depressed, something that even the things that's pleasurable that you like to do may not be that pleasurable again and interest anymore. So when you see these things happening, that's a good time to go see your doctor. Inability to feel joy, even at happy occasion like social withdrawal. Though it's a long type of depression, the severity of symptoms can become less intense for months at a time before worsening again. Some people also have episode of major depression before or while they are persistent depressive disorder. This is called like a double depression. Persistent depression lasts for years at a time. So people with this type of depression may start to feel like the symptoms are just part of the normal outlook of life. And as we're talking about this, I know there was one patient who she was like in a catatonic state. She was in a state where she lay in her bed. She couldn't talk. She couldn't communicate with anybody. She just lie there. And that's she have gone so far, and I believe, if I'm correct, that she ended up dying in that state. So
that is very
we
sad.
don't let and I always like to use this term, Shanaz. You don't let someone to drift away that you can't find them, and when you do find them, it's too far. You can't find them.
Maharani Dubey is on. Good evening to you. And Gitas Baldeo said that's very true. Kenneth Harry George, thank you very much. Stress could lead to depression. That's right. Remember, folks, each and every one of us have something going on. We all have a little stress. We have to practice mindfulness, and then we'll be able to deal with things a little bit better, so we do not overwhelm ourselves. Well, I'm glad I asked you how was your day, and you had a very nice and relaxing day. Well, my day was very stressful, but you know what? I got it over. So I was very busy at work, and I always said things could be worse. I always look at the glass half full and not just half empty. Things could be worse, but it's done with, and it's always.
And you came and you were smiling, and we are rocking this here today. And I'm so glad I have Harry George on. I I just saw his comment about a week or two ago. So I want to welcome you and thank you for your contribution. I see
Gayatri Etwaro is watching us from Barbados. Good evening to you. Sheila Munger, how are you doing? Thank you guys very much. Gayatri Etwaro, please share. We're urging each and every one of you to hit that share button. You just have to put it on your timeline. And if you're so excited, well, do share it to a few groups. You never know who the media could reach and who might need the help.
And who you may be able to save, right? You know, many years ago, I used to hang out in Barbados, Gayatri, many times. I walked the whole island of Barbados. I got a little Bajan accent in me when I get ready.
Wow.
Right, you know,
so he'll be coming to visit you.
I love Barbados. It's a beautiful island. But let's go through another thing that says prenatal depression. Prenatal depression, and it's something that I really want to talk about because there are so much different form of depression that we know about. But I wanted to talk about this one, especially when I hear and I read so much. You know, the good thing is that I get all the problems. Somebody always inbox me them or send them to me on my Facebook page. So I get to share a lot of them on my page, and I get to read a lot of them. And I hear so many comments about, when a woman give birth to a child and after the birth of the child, the mother killed the child. You know, there is so much negative talk about the mother.
Your hormones, as you know, a woman, your hormones are all over the place, and I believe, it's one of a very traumatic experience for a lot of women, childbirth, from suffering from 9 months of pregnancy to the hospital to delivery. It could be quite traumatic, and that could lead to depression. So
absolutely,
your hormones are all over the place, and that's why it's important for our healthcare professionals to see these signs and observation and know that they could intervene.
Absolutely. And you know that with your kids, you went through this, I think 2 times. So, you know the deal.
I've seen all my sister. I've been there with them, during it. So you could tell when they're experiencing something as well.
And, that's a good time to pay. And, it's a good time that, it's different now here, is that you have so much, help in this country with these kind of things. And so when you have your spouse,
some might say we have help, but living in this hectic environment where everyone have a different work schedule, sometimes offering to babysit my own niece and nephews are like a little, I want to do it, but when do I have the time? It happens to be like, my sister called me and asked me if I could babysit for her, and my nephews and my nieces, they love me. So of course they would love to come, but time is an essence. So sometimes, as much as we have a kind heart, we want to do it, everyone has other obligations and our jobs and requirements. So
yes, and as you said, and I forget to mention when you said mindfulness, and let's go back just briefly and talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is that we take care of ourselves and what's going on right now, not what happened last year.
Self-care is very important, and then if you add to that, as much as you have a good heart, adding to that can be overwhelming, so you don't put too much on your plate,
Yes, and as we're talking, we see Gayatri from Barbados. While I'm going to go through and talk about prenatal depression, you guys can go ahead and tell us which part of the world you're from, because I know we have people as far as India and Australia watching us, and we are so glad that we have people all over the world.
Lalita Deo Prasad, good evening to you. Good evening to our wonderful folks from the Caribbean. Voice, Avida Danraj, hey, how you been? Liz Paduman said, yes, hormones are crazy sometime. Good evening to you. And yes, smiling is the best gift you could give. Grace the world with your best. And if you don't know how someone else is feeling, a smile could change their day.
That's right. You are right. You got it down pack. Prenatal depression, which is clinically known as major depressive disorder, with peripartum onset, occurs during pregnancy or within the 4 weeks of childbirth. And it's often called postpartum. That's when you give birth to the child. But that term only applies to depression after giving birth. Prenatal depression can occur while you are pregnant. Perinatal, depression can occur while you're pregnant. So you could be depressed when you are pregnant. And from what I see, from what I'm hearing, a lot of people, from the cases that I heard, they kill the baby after the baby born. And I haven't heard a lot of things about, when the woman is pregnant. I haven't done any kind of prenatal nursing here in the United States a guy, and it would have been a nice thing if we can get a nurse or a doctor who can really talk about this, or we get some mothers who online can tell us exactly, who suffer from depression.
And sometimes you might say, you know what, how come she didn't just abort the baby? As we're all against abortion, everyone's situation is different. And we talked early in our program, mothers who keep the baby after they being raped. So why, you're trying to understand, why would she wait 9 months to give birth to a full-term baby, but you don't know what she was going through. Maybe her mental status was fine during that 9 month of pregnancy. Do you think that's...
Absolutely. It's always a question when these things happen. When a mother kills a baby, what's going on? And we all want to judge, and we all want to know what's going on. And we all say negative things, but we don't know
the facts.
Of recently, when I know a young Indian girl, I think probably from India, she killed her baby, and it was so sad. I think, but probably for her first child. Hormonal changes that happen during pregnancy and childbirth can trigger changes in the brain that leads to mood swings. The lack of sleep and physical discomfort that often accompany pregnancy and have a newborn doesn't help either. And Shanaz, that when you give birth to a child, it's not easy. That especially the young mothers who does not have any support. They have to wake up in the night 3-4 times to make sure that the baby nourishment, and to feed the baby, to make sure the baby is fine. In the meantime, she is not getting any rest. And a good thing now is that you can, during this difficult time, or not difficult time, you get your baby. It's always good to have somebody. That's why it's good to have your parents who come a couple of days and stay with you, make sure that everything is fine with you and the baby.
Or a few hours could make a difference when you get that full sleep. That we all need sleep, and I believe that sometimes we're sleep deprived.
Yes, and that, that your family members really could give you that break that you really wanted in life to
assist. So if you know someone need help, please, it's a good thing to do. Offer your assistance. And as much as I don't encourage anyone to babysit, I don't leave my kids or your kids with anyone. Know who you're leaving your children with.
On that note, despite we know that a lot of people who the children get abused is by people who we know, so we have to we be very careful. We never know. So let's go ahead.
Lalita Dear Prasad said, I went through torture on my second pregnancy. I couldn't hold him for after 3 weeks because he swallowed amniotic fluid, and that was very sad. Sorry to hear that, Lalita. And every pregnancy is different. Some can be very traumatic. It's easy sometimes for the guy to stand there looking what's going on, but your whole body is going through a complete change, a transformation from pregnancy to delivery, and it's hard to cope with it sometimes.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some symptoms of perinatal depression. Can be as severe as those of major depression, and includes sadness, anxiety, anger or rage, exhaustion, extreme worry about the baby's health and safety, difficulty caring for yourself or the new baby. Because sometimes, and especially when you are a young mother and you haven't given birth, you don't have anybody, one does not know really what to expect. I'm going to give birth to this child. What do? I remember people came to my mother and said, you know what, I give birth and I don't know what to do. How do I take care of this child?
First, you have to take care of yourself as a mother, a new mother. You have to take care of yourself, and then you'll be able to take care of that child. And there's so much need that we need as a young mother, taking care of after a pregnancy, right?
Absolutely. And the more help you have, the better for you. You get more rest. You extreme worry, as we said, for the baby's health, and you don't know what's going to happen. Difficulty caring for yourself or to the newborn, especially if you're having like cesarean section or the episiotomy. You don't know. It's going to be very difficult for women, especially giving birth. And
so that's why we, the Caribbean Voice, urges you to treat our women better. And I've seen you posted something. We need, the men out there need to learn to respect our women, your sisters, your mothers, your aunts. Treat them with love, understanding, and respect. On that note, we'll say goodnight to the beautiful Angela Moti and Mr. Deo Moti. They'll be performing. Angela will be performing for the Caribbean Voice Concert for Hope, June 29 in Kissimmee, Florida. Island Grill it is. Linai, good night to you. Mr. John Nimad, good night to you. The beautiful Julie Singh, I hope you got your voice back so you could sing this weekend. Good evening to each and every one of you.
Lenai, we have our Lenai. Good night, my dear. How are you doing? I know you're always doing good and always sharing some positive quotes on Facebook. Keep sharing the love. Also, thoughts of self-harm are harming the baby. So that's another thing. So if you know someone is going through some form of depression, especially they have a baby, you keep an eye on them and make sure that they don't hurt that baby. And you get a lot of people involved in this.
Right. It's something, as you see something, do something or say something, because you don't want to feel at the end, I wish I could have done this, I could have helped, or I could have reached out to someone. Be that mediator, intervene.
That's right. Women who lack support or have had depression before at the risk of developing perinatal depression, but it can happen to anyone. So one of the things, Shanaz, we, in this life, I learned that we never know what could happen to any one of us, and that's why it's good to be as supportive as possible. We want some music, or we can continue.
Well, we want to play the beautiful Girly Prasad song, and then we'll have a song by the beautiful Angela Moti right here on Island Mix Radio, Island Zone Radio. It is every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. right here and live on Facebook. Do spread the link, share, and we'll be right back with a beautiful song. Let's go. You're locked on to Island Zone Radio every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. The Caribbean Voice presentation of the Mind Connection. Let's go.
Thank you for being here. Are you ready for Glow tonight? You ready for chutney? Well, I'm going to start off a little slow. In the meantime, you guys warm it up.
The voice of the beautiful Girly Prasad.
DJ doing a fantastic job.
Sylvina. Charles, good evening to you. Good evening to each and every one of you locked on to Island Zone Radio. Every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. is the Caribbean Voice presentation of the Mind-Body Connection. We're hoping to connect to your mind and your body. The Caribbean Voice Media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Hey, what's up? You never know what's up. Gita Balde, good evening to you. Linay, how you doing? Lalita, I'm glad you got over that and things are much better. If you know someone in need of help, whether it comes to counseling, the Caribbean Voice is here, making a difference, not just in Guyana, in NYC, and hey, we're heading to Trinidad as well. Depression is so real as we continue our talk tonight with Mr. Kenneth Ramprasad.
That's right. That's right. Welcome back, and thank you guys for tuning in. I see my sister Naomi Ramdas is locked in, and always, I always love to have Gita Baldio on to always positive. Every morning she sent me a positive message.
That's right.
And before I sleep, she always said, "Well, thank you very much. It really do means a lot." On all of you, I say thank you very much on behalf of the Caribbean Voice for watching our program, for sharing our program. I know you guys are committed that, week after week. And from the time we started, from last year,
we
November,
do have some loyal viewers out there and listeners out there. The song you were listening to was done by the beautiful Girly Prasad. And yes, it was Chutney Glow. Good night to Mr. Sham Tilak, a member of the Caribbean Voice as well.
Yes, and before we talk about situational depression, I want to talk to add on postpartum depression. It's reported to occur in 50% of women shortly before any time or after childbirth, but commonly begins between a week or a month after delivery. It has a higher risk that, like if this woman was depressed before or she had any kind of mental health issue, anxiety. Also, it is very difficult if a woman have these kind of health condition. It is very difficult for her to take care of her child. It makes it a little more challenging and more difficult. So let's talk about situational depression, and this is very important. Situational depression, clinically known as adjustment disorder with depressed mood, looks like major depression in many cases. But it's brought on by a specific event or situation, such as the death of a spouse or loved one, a serious illness or other life-threatening event, going through a difficult divorce or a child custody issue, begin an emotionally or physically abusive relationship, being unemployed or facing serious financial difficulty, facing extensive legal trouble. And let's talk about this. We know that, you're losing a house, you're losing your job is very difficult on anyone. Especially we talk about divorce, you're going through divorce. It's very traumatic on the kids and your spouse, and it could lead to depression. One high up on the agenda, what could cause you for just being depressed. So, always a good thing if you're going through a very, and you and I know that through experience, through listening to stories, we've been on this earth a long time, and we have heard over and over again, there's so much bitter divorce going on where mother don't want, and I'm going to make a special, a lot of times people going through divorce and they take out all the problems on the children. They use their children sometimes to barter, to get back at the husband, to get back at the wife. And I would say, to our viewers, share this, it's not the right thing to do.
They'll keep them away from spending time with their fathers because, of your own personal.
And at the end of the story,
the kids are the ones suffering more.
And they may go through depression, or they may experience
and they
sometimes
also
down the
need
line
some kind of
anxiety.
counseling while the parents are going